always doing more than one thing at once. That's all the Gemini in me. Okay. I've traveled around the world teaching intuition, YMCAs, Unity churches, lately a lot on cruise boats. And I come in contact with a lot of people. Intuition is something that we can argue about, trying to come up with a definition of it, prove it, and so on. I don't like to deal with a lot of theory. I've been trying to learn how to work with people intuitively about intuition. And what I'm going to share with you this afternoon is my latest, you might say, my latest, my favorite, the culmination of all of the training exercises that I've worked with and researched. And it's one that requires the least amount of theory and really draws a lot from you in terms of your own intuition. Now, what I found interesting is when I go around, there's one thing that about everybody can agree upon about intuition. And it's this. Have you ever regretted not following a hunch? Raise your hand if that's true. Look, almost all the hands are up. This is something that's a universal experience. This is something where everybody can say, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've regretted not following a hunch. In fact, for a lot of people, the experience of regret over not following a hunch becomes their important teacher that gets them to say, oh, darn it, from now on I'm going to pay attention to those inner promptings because it really cost them something. And thinking about why we didn't follow those hunches is a good place to start in terms of starting to understand or listen to our own intuitions about intuition, our own feelings about it, and what we sense is lacking. So let me just toss it out to you for starters. You recall those times when you regretted not following a hunch. Why didn't you follow it? What gets in the way of us following those hunches? Tell me. Yes, back there.
I didn't believe it.
You didn't believe it. Okay? Now why wouldn't we believe it? Yes. Because it doesn't make sense. Okay, it doesn't have like a rational pedigree somehow. You can't trace back where it comes from. Other reasons. Why don't we? Yes?
It's not logical.
It's not logical. There's another. It doesn't have that rational pedigree. Yes?
Afraid to.
You're afraid to follow the hunch. Sometimes we're afraid to follow those hunches because we've already invested in something else. Sometimes because it involves some risk and change in the status quo. Other reasons. We don't trust it. Now, what would it take for us to be able to trust that? See, one of the things about intuition is that it's something that comes from within us. And so it's not publicly accessible, at least as we've been taught. In fact, it has been shrouded in some negativity. If you ask people to define intuition, for example, they'll say something like, well, it's when you know something without knowing why you know it. Or it's when you know something but you don't know how it came to be. Or you know it without doing any thinking. And so there's some kind of a negative, like it's not as good as something else, but it's there. Or it's missing something important, but it's there. If we were to define intuition positively, we might just simply say it's an inner knowing. It's knowing from within. One of the things that we've done also to make intuition less accessible to us is that we expect a level of perfection from it. If you're talking about intuition with a group of people, someone will tell you about an intuition that they had that was wrong. Like to say, well, here I followed the hunch and I was wrong, so there, see, you just can't trust intuition. But, you know, we say oftentimes our thinking is invalid, but that doesn't make them less thoughts. They're still thoughts. And sometimes our feelings are overblown or irrational, but they're still feelings. But intuition sometimes gets put on this pedestal where it has to be perfect in order to be worked with. Because it doesn't really have this overt, publicly observable component, we've never really had a time in which we were sharing and learning about intuition. Intuition requires, if nothing else, and this is what we're going to work with today, learning to trust what comes from within. But can you think of one class that you've ever taken in school where the teacher said, don't pay any attention to what I say, it's what you think that counts. You know, we never get that. But I think it is possible. I think I found some ways in which we can together learn that intuition has some common aspects, that there is some pattern to intuitive functioning that can be shared, that can be compared, and that we can come to learn to recognize the working of intuition. We can come to learn what makes it more trustworthy, what makes it less trustworthy. We know, for example, that there's a logic to thinking. And you can trace out thinking to see if it follows a certain logical pattern. We've learned how with feelings to be with feelings and let them speak, and through that, feeling after feeling, come to understand what it is that's the underlying value that's propelling the feeling. Well, we can do the same thing with intuition, that we don't have to be naive about it. Now, another thing about intuition that has made it kind of hard to get to relate to is that we feel that it's a lot easier to be intuitive when we're not trying to. It happens spontaneously, it happens naturally, but if we try to invoke it, somehow we get in our way. How many of you have had that experience? Right, it's a lot easier just to discover that you've been intuitive rather than, quote, try to be intuitive. Well, we'll have to drop the trying, and if I use the word trying, say intending. We'll use that word a little bit because there is a letting go of trying involved. How many of you have trouble letting go? Okay, here's a real quick lesson in letting go. I want everybody to take a deep breath and hold it. Okay, now in a minute you're going to learn how easy it is to let go. Okay, intuition is as easy as that. One of the things that I found about intuition, both personally from an inner emotional point of view, and also in terms of those complex thought patterns that I can get into as a recovering intellectual, I say recovering, not recovered, is that intuition is as easy as, intuition is as profound as, and intuition is as spiritual as being yourself. So all you have to do is be yourself. Now when I grew up and my mom was always saying to me, Henry, all you have to do is be yourself. I thought, come on, Ma, that's not very good. You know, I want to be a superstar or something. But to trying to be something other than who you are goes against the intuitive flow. And one of the values then about this, you'll see, is working on intuition and working on becoming who you are. And there's a very profound truth there, and we'll let you discover that as we go. Okay, well, one of the things that I've discovered myself is that you all are carrying around with you a very powerful, profound teacher of intuition, of letting go, of inspiration. And it's your breathing. So I would like you to meet your inner intuition teacher. First of all, to do this, what I'd like to suggest that you do, and you can do this with your eyes open or closed, is simply start paying attention to your breathing. Just start being aware of your breathing, following it, the ins and the outs. Like you might pay attention to watching a bird in the forest, where you don't want the bird to know that you're there, so it'll just act natural and go on by itself without being bothered by you. Now let's stop for a moment and reflect on what we just experienced. How many of you, when you started to pay attention to your breath, started to control it in some way or want to influence it? Look at this. Most of us. That's very common. I can count on most of the hands going up. Now, let's do it again and see if you can discover what it is. What's going on inside of you that makes you want to control your breathing or influence it. So again, pay attention to your breathing. And the goal is you're just going to pay attention to it and let it be. And yet you sneak in there and do stuff. Okay, stop breathing for a minute. Stop paying attention to it. Shift focus. So let's take some comments. Why is it once we start paying attention to our breath, even though we know intellectually that we've been breathing for years without having to do anything about it, it just happens. As soon as you pay attention to your breath, you feel like you got to control it. So, what do you think? Yes?
I thought I could do it better.
She thought she could do it better. Isn't that interesting? God designed the breathing apparatus, but your name is? She doesn't even need to wear a name tag. Okay, somebody else. Yes?
I started second guessing it. Well, am I breathing deep enough? Oh, am I changing it? Is it the
Right,
same?
she started second guessing her breathing. She said, am I breathing deep enough? Am I breathing well enough? This is breathing? Yes. Others? Yes.
Slowing it down so you can relax more.
You wanted to be in control of your bodies. Yes, and Nancy back there?
Slowing it down so you can relax more.
You wanted to slow it down to relax more. Yeah, there's a number of things. One is the sense of some kind of a judgment comes in. And our breath is not living up to our expectations, our judgments. Yes. Or we have some theory about what the breath should be like. Especially if we've had some yoga or something, we think, oh, it should be deep and regular and so on. And so we want to impose that on it. There's another, someone said control. I think this is very profound because there's a certain vulnerability there in allowing your breath to just happen in front of you, within you, without you somehow being able to protect yourself from it. It could get away from you. You could hyperventilate all of a sudden. So you really got to keep your hands on those lungs, and make sure that you're in charge. Well, all of those things, you see, we're dealing with something very simple, something very natural, something very everyday. We could be in any country, in any ethnic group, and we could experience this. It's just a part of our nature, and we can reflect on it. It's the same thing I said, you want to be intuitive, and it's easy to do it spontaneously, but as soon as you pay attention and try to be intuitive on purpose, you have trouble. Your breathing happens automatically, naturally, spontaneously, intuitively, instinctively, all the time, without you. As soon as you pay attention to it, you get in the way, you trip over yourself, and so on. It would be the same thing if I said, Guy, is that your name? Come on up here, Guy, for a minute. I want you to stand up here and just be yourself for a couple of minutes. A guy would say to me, well, Henry, what do you want me to do? It's the same kind of thing. So we got the critter in our sights. The critter that needs to be in control. The critter that has trouble just letting it happen. But fortunately, your breath is a wonderful teacher. Your breath is very forgiving. This teacher will show up in class every time you present yourself and will teach you this lesson until you get it. So, let's practice a little bit. Let's learn some things that the breath can show us. Again, I would say, focus on your breathing. You can close your eyes, but you don't need to. And I'd like you, we're going to break it up. We'll break the lesson up into little bits. The first bit being the exhalation. Just watch the breathing, especially at the exhalation. And notice how the breath teaches you about letting go. Every exhalation is a letting go. Every exhalation is a relaxation. It happens very naturally. Just to watch it, just enjoy it. You don't need to help it. You don't need to do anything with it. Just watch it. Just notice it. Let your breath teach you about letting go, relaxing. And as you're observing and learning from your breath about letting go and relaxing, notice what it reminds you of. Maybe some memories, pictures, or images will come to you that describe for you the experience of relaxing, letting go. See what comes. Okay, observers, researchers, explorers into the unknown. What came for you? What's it like to, when your breath relaxes, lets go, the exhalation happens, what did you get? What did you notice? Somebody. Release. Okay, that's a good word, release. Somebody else. Excuse me? A sigh. Okay, a sigh of release. A sigh of relief. Can people relate to that? Yes? Okay, others. Somebody? What's it like?
Empty.
Quiet. It's quiet is what it's like, huh? You're all spaced out now. Okay, yes. Peaceful. Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, very calming.
Very calming. Uh-huh. Okay. Did you like it? Yeah? Okay, yes. When you're just about asleep. Yes, okay, very good. Somebody else.
Muscles relaxing.
Very relaxing, uh-huh. Was it starting to spread throughout more of your body? Yes? Okay, yeah, some people are yawning. Yes, okay, maybe this is dangerous to do after lunch. Okay. All right, that's okay. Just how sleepy can you get without falling asleep? We'll take the risk. Okay, very good. All right, let's go back to the laboratory and let's observe our breathing again. Just let it be natural. The exhalations are teaching you about letting go, relaxing, releasing. This image of just surrender into something very peaceful. And now, watch the inhalations. Watch how they can come all by themselves. Let your inhalations teach you about acceptance. As the breath goes out, just let it go and wait for the next breath to come to you all by itself. And see, what does that remind you of? What images or pictures or thoughts come to you to describe what that feels like? Yes.
Like a window.
Like a window.
Door.
A door, say more. A window or a door. Very interesting. Say some more about that. It's a door that's opening up.
Yeah, like it's opening up.
Opening up. Look at him. His hands go like this, opening up into something larger. Very interesting. Somebody else. Yes. What? The ocean. How many of you can relate to that? It's like the ocean. The waves come and go. Yeah. Somebody else. Other pictures, images. Sunrise. Say more about the sunrise. It's sort of enlightening. Okay. It's what? Expanding. Okay. Can you relate to that image of expanding? Yes. A plant growing. Yeah, this filling you up. What? Swallowing something. Yeah, you're really taking something in. Okay, let's think about this. So what does it mean to be open to your breathing? What does it mean to be open to your breathing? Be close to your breathing for a moment. Just be close to it. Now, open to your breathing. What does it mean, open to your breathing? Yes. Intimate with your breathing. That's a very intimate experience being with your breathing. That's a word that we'll explore this more. What do we really mean by intimate? It's a word that's used a lot, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty inside, what is the essence of this experience that we call intimate? Comfortable? Okay, very good. Yes?
Feeding.
Fleeting.
Feeding.
Feeding. You get felt fed by it, nurtured. Okay, let's observe the breath again. And let it, the breathing, take you through the stages again. You begin by focusing on the exhalations, relaxing, releasing, and then shift your focus to the inhalation, so you're accepting. And now introduce the word trust. What does it mean to trust in the breath? Let's focus on that word trust. Can you trust in your breath? Do you trust in your breath? If you do trust in your breath, then what does it start to feel like to be trusting that these inhalations will come, that there's nothing that you need to do, that they come by themselves? What does the experience of trust then evoke in you? What does it remind you of? What images or memories come to you that express this experience of trusting in your breath? Virginia.
Reminds me of a baby relaxing in his mother's arms.
A baby relaxing in its mother's arms. Now, here's a very interesting image. A baby relaxing in its mother's arms. Here's a little innocent baby that feels that it's being taken care of by something larger. Can anyone relate to that image? It's a very interesting picture of this feeling. Very interesting. Somebody else, yes.
Our basic needs.
Your basic need is being met. Yes, it feels very good to be taken care of that way. Yes.
A spontaneous allowing.
A spontaneous allowing. Yes, You're not self-aware. Can you state that in a positive way? Conscious. More present, but in a different kind of way. And so, conscious in a larger. There's an experience of life itself. Yes, yes, yes. You're all very, very intuitive, and we're going into an intuitive place. You are going inside and making observations, and these feelings and thoughts that are coming from within. This is an intuitive process that we are going through. Something that's been with you all the time, and yet we're just now really exploring it with some depth and sensitivity. I'd like you to go back into the laboratory. Once again, observe your breathing. Let it take you through these stages. First, in relaxing during the exhalations. Releasing. Just let your breath remind you what it's like to let go. And then focus on the inhalations. And let your breath teach you what it's like to accept. What it's like to trust. And now meditate on this word, inspiration. Inspiration. What does it mean to trust in inspiration? What does it mean that we have this word inspiration for both breathing and creative insights? Inspiration. Just ask your breath to tell you something about inspiration. What can your breath teach you? Maybe a memory or an image or a thought will come to you. Okay? Observations, anybody? Yes? A knowing. Somebody else? Yes, back there.
An interrelatedness.
An interrelatedness. Okay, very interesting. Sir?
I consider it a renewal.
It's a renewal. You were going to say? Uplifting.
Kind of a meditation.
It's kind of like a meditation. Well, it definitely is a meditation. I mean, there are meditation systems that involve just exactly what we're doing. Yes?
Born again with each breath.
Born again with each breath. Yes, A candle burning. Okay, yes?
Life force in motion.
A life force in motion. It's very interesting, we talked about, we're getting into the realm of boundaries, for example. Where does the breath come from? Is it something within you? Is it coming from outside of you? Or is outside of you and inside of you one? Inspiration. Inspiration means inside of you there's this idea that's lit up like a candle. The light bulb goes off. It's coming from beyond somehow. It comes from beyond what you normally think of. You feel inspired. You feel full. The breath and spirit have always been related because their sense of being connected with something that's larger than you, and yet it happens inside of you. It's invisible, and yet it moves you. So as you meditate on your breath and you ask to be shown, what is the truth in this? What is the reality of this? It starts taking you into those realms. That you've been giving me these images. Functioning intuitively, developing an intuitive understanding of your breath by allowing yourself to have these images, these memories, these thoughts that describe it for you, that put it into a new framework for you so that you can see nuances. To see the experience of breathing as like a little baby in its mother's arms is to put you in contact with the experience of the innocence, the vulnerability, the trust, the presence of a larger, nurturant reality. It makes you aware of all of those things. So that image like lights up your awareness. And you can see and perceive what you hadn't noticed before. And that's what intuition does for us. It helps us relate to the unknown by drawing on what's within us to connect us with the unknown. And that's what you've been doing very well as you've been going and exploring nuances of your breathing. We could do this longer. I love to spend time with people just exploring the metaphors and the images that they come up with about these subtler aspects of the breathing experience. We'll take it for right now as learning to trust in inspiration. We're learning this technique, you might say, the mechanical process by which you can intentionally get out of your way, be focused on the inner experience, get into the flow, which is a word that's often used to describe an intuitive process, a person who's in the flow, like riding on the surf, riding in the wind, and they don't have to make anything happen. It happens by itself, this flow experience. And the secret of learning how to work intuitively, intentionally, where you're not having to do it just behind your back, but you can do it on purpose, is of course to enter this flow state. And the flow state is one in which you're concentrated, you're paying attention to what's happening inside of you, and at the same time, you're allowing what's happening inside of you to flow naturally, spontaneously, without you making an effort, without you directing it. And your breath can teach you how to do that. We've had just a very, very short practice session of it. But I'm sure you know and realize it's very natural, even though it may not seem very common, because we normally don't focus on our breathing like that. But it's very easy. Okay. Now, I'd like to apply this same principle of allowing things to flow. We're going to go to this next step, and we're going to allow it with our thinking. We're going to see that we can have our own thoughts come out and pop up just spontaneously, without preparation, without planning. Now to do that, first of all, I want to use a visual image, and this is a good time to be collecting the names. So let's take a moment out, and you can have a little stretch or something, and we're going to collect the names for the drawings, and we'll put them in the bowl, and we can use this as our image. If we get some help here, let's pass this bowl around, and this one, and we'll get the names in it. Okay. Now, I want you to pretend like in here, like in a lottery bowl, are all your memories. All your memories you can think of as in your mind, just shake them up. All the experiences. How many experiences do you think you've had in a lifetime? Millions. So imagine like in the big lottery bowl, all your memories are just being shaken up right now. All of the things you've ever experienced, those little momentary experiences are being thrown and around and around and around. When I clap my hands, just let a memory come to you. How many had a memory come? Pretty good. How many asked, what memory am I supposed to have? A few owned up to it. Okay. That's all right. That's all right. That's only natural. That's only natural. Let's do it again. This is really fun. This is really easy. Well, we call it the memory game. Can you be surprised by the memory that comes to you? All right, here we go. How many had a memory? Okay, you guys are really good. Okay, let's do it again. How many had a memory? Okay, somebody willing to share their memory? Anybody? Anybody? All right, please come up here.
I have to come up.
Oh, yes, please.
That was a horrible memory. It was my wedding.
Okay. Okay. What was your memory?
It was my wedding.
Your wedding.
My first wedding.
And what was the scene you saw? What was the first little
I saw
snippet?
this happy girl standing there.
You saw happy. Was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
For a
Yeah.
few minutes anyway.
Okay. Okay. Oh.
I'm happy now.
What's really interesting is that I go around the world collecting experiences about hunches that people regretted not following. You know one of the most common hunches people regret not following? That they shouldn't have gotten married. All right. We got all those presents lined up and everything. Okay. All right, now, just take that image. You see this happy girl and so on. Now, supposing that there is a lesson in that memory for you today, what would it be? How could you turn that memory into, what could you say about it that you could learn today from that?
Don't go for appearances.
Don't go for appearances. Okay, great.
Don't be scared. It'll be
Okay,
okay.
okay. All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Somebody else had a memory. Somebody? Yes. Come up here. One of the things that we can do with experiences is that we learn from them. Wisdom is learning from experience, right? That's basically what it is. Come on up here, and you are Eileen. What was your memory?
I caught a really big one.
I caught a big bluefish. They come really big, don't they? And this memory, what were you seeing? What was the first image that came to you of that memory?
I saw really big.
And you were holding up your hand? Okay, all right, great. And what would you say is what that memory has to teach you today? What could you learn from that experience today?
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay, great. Okay. Now, I was holding in my mind this question as I was doing this memory thing. I want people to come up with memories that will say something to them about how to better trust their intuition. So Holly, she has a memory of smiling on the wedding day, and she gets the lesson, don't go by appearances. How could you use that, Holly, that message to learn to better trust your intuition?
Gosh. Just pay attention to it.
Pay attention to it, right, and not have the expectations about how it should appear, huh? And Eileen's, I think, lesson is pretty obvious. You know, just go for it. Just do it. And the fish, catching the big fish, is a great, great image for an intuition coming out of the unconscious. Okay? Now, what we just did was a standard training methodology in intuition training. We have a person who's written a book about this methodology, where they call it, is it the key concept? The keying, the key, where it's kind of a trick in a way, where you're not told the question, and then you give the answer. And then you're shown the question afterwards. And then you see how your answer linked up to the question. You following me? That's what we did. I didn't tell you that the question was, how can you learn to better trust your intuition? But you had the memories came, and we made up a story about it, got some wisdom from that, and then applied it to now the question is revealed and you're applying it. Now, the purpose at one level for this kind of an approach, where you have the hidden question or the undisclosed question, is that it's a way of preventing you from thinking about the question. You bypass the intellect, because you can't think about a question if you don't know it. So at one level, it seems kind of like a trick. On the other hand, intuition, if it's anything, is learning about how to comprehend the unknown, to recognize the unknown when it's invisible to you, when you can't see it, and you draw on something from within. And so in some sense, it's also the hidden key, the secret question technique, is also an analogy to what happens in real life. Now, one of the things that I think is important about a spiritual approach to intuition training is that we don't want to learn just techniques. We want to grow. We want the intuition training, the psychic training, to help us develop as souls, as beings. I was very much influenced by a book called Zen and the Art of Archery. And in this story, it's about a German who goes to Japan and seeks a Zen master, and every Japanese teacher turns him down because they say, how could a Westerner learn Zen? But there was one Zen master who was kind of a recluse and kind of strange, and all the other masters said, well, go see him, he might teach you. And it was this wild guy, an archer. And the archer helped this fellow learn how to string the bow, he'd carry the bow, and finally he was learning how to shoot it. And the archer demonstrated what he could do. And one night he brought him out, and the archer, the master, got himself blindfolded, put the target long ways away, and at night, and pulled the bow and shot the arrow and went into the bullseye. Amazing ability to shoot and hit the bullseye when you can't even see it. Well, the next day, the student, he's there, he's got the bow strung, and he's pulling the bow back, and he's aiming his arrow, and the master comes and catches him and whacks him on the side of the head. And he says, don't let me ever catch you aiming at the target again. He says, anybody can aim at the target and hit it. That's just trick shooting. I want you to learn how to become one with the target. And then you and the target are one, and the arrow hitting the bullseye is just an expression of that. And so to look at the hidden key, the secret question approach as some kind of a technique to help you not have to think about the question really would short circuit your own growth that's hidden in this method. So we need to go another level. We're going to go one more level, and then I'll let you take a little break, and then we're going to put it all together, and you're going to be doing intuitive readings for each other. I've been showing you the technique of letting go, the technique of trusting what comes. But now we need a reason to trust. Because part of the difficulty in learning to work with intuition is sometimes we doubt it. Can we trust this? Is maybe my hope or my fear and not intuition, or a valid intuition of a larger truth? Our hopes and our fears also represent truths. But when we're talking about trusting and intuition, we're talking about a truth that goes beyond just us. They say the difference between men and women is that women really need a good reason to make love. And men, they just need to find the place. So we have to go, to appreciate this fully, we have to go beyond just learning the technique of letting go and having things come and finding a higher purpose. And I think the higher purpose can be found in the heart. Now, I found it's very interesting that the heart is a good example of just how intuitive we already are and don't know it. We're like fish in the sea, where intuition is like the ocean. Now, I've come up with so many expressions of the heart to represent intuition. We say, I know in my heart. Now, what does that mean? Somebody tell me, what does that mean to say, I know in my heart? In the deepest level, the truth, I know in my heart. When I say, I know in my knee. I think with my cojones. So what's this, I know in my heart? What is that? How many of you think you know what it means? How many of you want to put it into words? See? It's intuitive. It's intuitive, and your own conscious awareness hasn't caught up with your intuition yet. Okay, we say, our heart goes out to someone. What do we mean? Our heart goes out to someone.
We empathize.
We empathize. Okay, we empathize. Perfect. Or we have compassion. Now, why is it valid to say our heart goes out to someone as a way of saying empathize? What's the truth in that? Where is the intuition in that? Our heart goes out. There is some kind of a feeling. Our hearts go out to somebody. We can sense that somehow, when we get into focusing through the heart, that our awareness goes beyond our own boundaries. And we have a different identity, a different sense of ourselves. Now, here's what I'd like us to do. Let's very quickly find somebody nearby and partner up with them. Partner up with somebody. Okay, let's have your attention. What I want you to do is I want you to just close your eyes. Just close your eyes and let's review what we've learned so far. Now I want you to just focus on your breathing and let your exhalations remind you of how to let go, to relax. And let your inhalations remind you that you can trust in inspiration. And now, just to give yourself the opportunity to feel grateful for the gift of breath. Here, this breath comes to you all on its own, freely given. So allow yourself to feel gratitude. Notice how good it feels. Gratitude is like heaven itself. And now notice in your heart area, that with this feeling of gratitude, your heart starts to feel soft, warm, expanding. Just notice how naturally your heart energy with gratitude feels like it's expanding. Love blossoming in your heart. And you can feel the energy expanding. And just allow that energy to expand until it makes contact with your partner. You're just sharing this feeling of gratitude with your partner. You can feel a heart connection with your partner. Your heart reaches out. You make contact with your partner. You can take your partner into your heart and experience your partner from within your own heart. Feeling close. Okay, now take a deep breath. Wiggle your fingers. Open your eyes and stretch, and just share with your partner for a moment what that was like.